During the holiday season of 2018, I made the decision to build up my Switch library since I only had a few games for the system. I took a look around and found that GameStop was running a buy two, get one free sale for used games. So I went down to my local GameStop to take advantage of the sale. I picked up Splatoon 2, Octopath Traveler, and Mario Tennis Aces. After it was all said and done, with my rewards membership, I paid around $30 for each game, which definitely felt like a sweet deal. Over 3 years later, I was looking through my Switch titles for a fun but shorter game to review for the channel, and that is when I came across Mario Tennis Aces. After all this time, I finally got to spend some time with the game, and that means it's time to answer the question, what's it worth in 2022? Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of What's It Worth, where I review a game, show some gameplay, and give thoughts on what a game is worth. Please note, I understand a game is worth what someone is willing to pay for it. Obviously, anyone is able to have their own opinion on what they like and dislike and have the freedom to buy and pay whatever they feel is reasonable. This is just my opinion based on the content within a game, the age of a game, how long it is, replayability, if there is a multiplayer available, and how good that multiplayer is. I have spent many years buying and playing games and have a general idea of what I feel I should be paying. This is simply to give you an idea of what a game is worth. And if money is no object, this is still a general review, so there is still something here for you. So let's get started. Mario Tennis Aces released in June of 2018, which would have made the game fairly new when I picked it up later that year. Mario spin-off games always tend to draw me in, and Mario Tennis Aces was no different. Even though I don't know all that much about tennis, something about our favorite plumber picking up a racket piqued my interest. Which is why I am kind of disappointed that it took me so long to dive in. Mario Tennis Aces' story takes place during a championship of... what sport was that again? Yep, you probably guessed it, tennis. Sorry if I spoiled the surprise there for you. Just kidding, but as always I will try to avoid spoilers. Anyway, to continue, Wario and Waluigi dig up an ancient racket called the Lucian racket from the Temple of Basque. The racket wraps them in its grip tape and then mind controls them. They then meet up with Mario and friends during the championship where Luigi ends up grabbing the racket and becomes possessed by its power. Mario and Toad must set out and find the 5 Power Stones and defeat the Lucian racket to save Luigi. Even though the story was predictable, I definitely welcomed it. It had some comical and cheesy dialogue between characters, and I especially had a few laughs with how every resolution in the game ties back into a tennis match somehow. There are different types of rackets that can be obtained on your journey, and you can level up Mario, which will increase his stats, which made even losing a match worthwhile since you still received experience for your effort. By the end of the story, I managed to have Mario's level in the mid-40s. There are some matches that had some annoying gimmicks that just made me want to push through them and find something more enjoyable. The boss matches were okay and not too difficult, and I understand their place, but I just more enjoyed the standard matches and puzzles Mario encounters throughout the story. The story took me approximately 9 hours, and I did enjoy much of my time with the story all the same. Mario Tennis Aces is definitely a great looking game and both docked and undocked, as you typically expect from a Mario game. If I had to mention something, there is some areas with some rough edges around textures, but nothing that would hurt the experience or that most would even notice. The game runs smooth and I didn't notice any slowdowns or stutters in either docked or undocked. I specifically found the use of bright colors during power-ups and to signify different shots really made the game pop. The background and landscapes also just added finishing touches on the experience. I don't usually talk about sound, but more and more I notice the significance of the sound in a game. The two things in this game that really get me is the sound of the crowd cheering you on and the sound of the ball being hit. I don't know why, but I just love that sound. Mario Tennis Aces does have some enjoyable gameplay. The controls are easy to pick up, and using a controller works well for the most part. I personally stick with the Pro Controller, and I use that for most of this review. The only time I found issues was during the zone shot or special shot, which allows you to pick a part of the court to shoot the ball as part of a power-up, and this sometimes seemed like it was a bit delayed. I think this might be due to the game allowing you to use motion controls to aim, at the same time giving you the option to aim with the analog stick. I too found that this sometimes made it hard for me to get the shot right where I wanted. Maybe this is just an issue that I was having, but it was definitely something I had to be conscious of. As for motion controls in general, there is a game mode called Swing Mode that lets you use the motion controls using one of the Joy-Cons. I had some fun with this, but I had some trouble using it on the standard display where I do most of my recordings. I couldn't seem to get a decent hit on the ball and I ended up knocking the ball out of bounds a lot of the time, so I moved to my TV where I was able to get more room to play, and it honestly was a lot better. But I still personally seem to hit the ball out of bounds a lot of the time. I think with some more practice I could get better at it, but I prefer to play with the controller in general or in handheld mode, so I don't know if I'll ever go back and try it again. Mario Tennis Aces has 30 playable characters that are playable from the start, but this was not always the case. I did a little research and I found that 16 characters were available at launch, and 14 characters were added later as playable DLC from participating in the online tournament. However, from the time I started playing the game, all these characters were unlocked and I had not played the game prior or participated in any of the online tournaments. There are also some alternate costumes that can be unlocked for some of the characters in the game just by playing different modes. Characters can be customized in a few different stat types: all around, speedy, tricky, defensive, technical, and powerful. This allows players to be able to get a character that fits their playstyle. For me, I prefer to play as Boo, which is a tricky type character. He can bend slice shots, which makes it difficult for my opponent to judge where the shot is going. Characters also have energy, which is generated by continuing rallies or builds when you charge shots or block, and it allows you to use your special shot or zone shot and determines how long you have to choose where you want to shoot the ball. Each character has their own unique special shots that they can build up their energy towards. Also, players' rackets have health bars. These health bars determine how long it will take for the racket to break. The racket will take damage when you fail to block a zone shot or special shot. This can be a strategy because characters can have more than one racket, and once the player has broken all their rackets, they are not able to continue. I used this strategy quite a few times during my time playing Mario Tennis Aces, and it worked quite well. There are several game modes to play within Mario Tennis Aces. The Adventure Mode, which has your story. Tournament Mode, which you can play a tournament with the AI where you can play 3 different cups: the Mushroom Cup, the Flower Cup, and the Star Cup. There is an online tournament to play other players. This I'll talk about a little bit more later. There is also Co-op Challenge, which is focused on multiplayer. Free Play, which allows you to play custom matches. Ring Shot, which allows players to try to pass the ball through rings to gain points. And Swing Mode, which I talked a little bit earlier, which allows the player to use a Joy-Con and motion controls. I did get to spend a fair amount of time in each of the game modes. The COM tournament was nice and I did enjoy my time playing through each cup. The Adventure Mode is where I spent the majority of my time. And as far as the other modes that aren't strictly multiplayer modes, like Free Play, Swing Mode, and Ring Shot, they were something that is included and I invested some time, but nothing I would spend more than a couple minutes, maybe a half an hour on. That being said, it's probably a good time to talk about the multiplayer. The game does have a lot of ways to play multiplayer. On a single system, you can play 1 to 4 players. On local wireless, you can play 2 to 4 players, and the online multiplayer can also have 2 to 4 players. As far as the online multiplayer is concerned, you may have a hard time finding other players. I'll start with the tournament mode. I was able to find players in standard and simple, however, it usually took over 5 minutes when I could find an opponent. Now, I was able to find players, but not all the time. I have gotten to play a handful of matches, and the matches that I did get in, I'm not sure if it was a bad connection or if the player just left, but at least half of my games, other players disconnected. As far as co-op challenge, I rarely found anyone to play with, and it was even harder to find a teammate in one of those matches. The game is limited on replayability. There are some outfits to unlock, and after the story is complete, there's a trial that can be played that allows players to beat the trial that have goals that are set by the game, and then it allows the players to beat their own score. I was able to complete this with the goals that are set by the game in around an hour and 30 minutes. Other than that, there really isn't much reason to return. Frequently asked questions. How much space does the game take up? I have a physical copy and it takes 570 megabytes. Per Nintendo.com, the Mario Tennis Aces downloaded version requires 2.4 gigabytes of space. Is the multiplayer dead? No, it is technically not dead, but it is very close. There are definitely a minimal amount of online players. Do you need Nintendo Online subscription to play online? Yes. Can you play it offline? Yes, everything works offline that isn't online multiplayer. So what's it worth? Mario Tennis Aces had some enjoyable moments during the story. I had a few laughs, and I had some moments where I just found myself annoyed by some of the gimmicks. The game looks very good and plays well for the most part. There isn't much in the way of replayability, and the multiplayer doesn't have many active players. With that said, Mario Tennis Aces is worth around $20. As always, I hope this helps. And make sure you subscribe for more What's It Worth reviews. Thank you so much.